Strategic back again. What's going on, guys? Big shout out to the viewer who emailed me this. Please, guys, if you get leads, if you get follow-ups and stories that I cover, please do email me those follow-ups and those leads, because I definitely always want to give you guys the newest information on stories that we cover. Zemar King spoke to Child Protective Services. He told them, "My mother's going to kill me." And they did not listen. They closed the case. 6 months later, Zemar King got strangled to death and buried in a shallow grave behind a rented house that his mother got evicted from. They found his mother, Las Vegas or something like that, hundreds of miles away, like nothing ever happened. Zemar King would be alive right now if somebody listened to him. One person took his cries for help seriously. This is what I'm talking about when I say in our society, we don't care about kids. We don't care about victims. We could solve the crisis of sexual abuse in our society if we just started bringing awareness and actually having consequences for these abusers that makes other abusers take pause before they do the actions that they do and destroy the lives that they destroy. If we had a death penalty for anybody who abuses a child below the age of 13, we would not have these issues. Ex abuse, serious physical abuse should be a life sentence. That means if you're abusing your child, you're beating on your child, you're breaking these bones, you're putting marks on the child to the point where the child needs to be hospitalized, you should be doing serious numbers, 15 to 25 years to maybe even life in prison if that's what you do to a young child. And if you ex-abuse a child, you should be put to death, just like they require it's done in Florida and the 2 other states. I got to look those states up. I keep forgetting. But we know they do it in Florida. This child screamed out for help. Nobody listened. Here's an update on this young boy's tragic story.
They said temperatures were in the 40s, the child was nude, and there was feces and a deflated air mattress in the vehicle.
I'm sorry.
State officials with Children's Protective Services miss blaring warnings that could have saved the life of a 9-year-old Detroit boy.
His remains were found buried in a backyard at a home in January. The boy's mother was charged with his murder on February 5th.
7 investigator Ross Jones is revealing internal CPS records, raising serious questions about what officials did and did not do when they heard alarming claims about the child's safety.
We identified some human remains, someone small in stature. Extremely sad day.
The scene at Woodingham and St. Martin's in Detroit was enough to shake even career police officers. The body of a child found buried in a shallow grave.
This case is rather shocking. In my 27-year career, I don't remember seeing anything like this.
It took days for officers to determine.
I'm in New York, my friend, and I'm seeing you guys way too much. I'm seeing Detroit law enforcement, these same faces, these same officials, these same high-ranking individuals doing press conferences way too much. That's a problem. I'm not in their state. I'm not in their town. And yet I'm seeing them constantly on my computer screen because, and 90% of the time, it's because of children who are being abused, neglected, and ended under the guise of the government that's out there. They're failing these children. Yes, of course, it's the parents and the abusers that are doing these things. But what is law enforcement? What is Child Protective Services doing to protect these children? Because obviously their parents aren't protecting them. So aren't we supposed to have systems and mechanisms in place to protect these children when their own parents aren't willing to protect them? It's a failure all the way around. Of course, we blame the parents first. But we also have to blame society because we've empowered these institutions to protect these children and they're not protecting them. King should be alive. Desire Harris should be alive. They're failing our children. We need to definitely get into those towns and demand some change and reform. Let's keep going.
That the boy was 9-year-old Zemar King, murdered, prosecutors say, by his mother, Brandy Pierce.
It's alleged that she purchased a shovel. She bound him by tying his hands and feet together. She then put him in this hole and covered him with dirt.
But as unspeakable as the alleged crime was, it did not come out of nowhere.
It's just a train wreck that's going to happen, right? You just see it coming, and they don't do anything about it.
By law, records from Children's Protective Services are guarded closely, even after a child dies. But we've obtained internal CPS records that show state employees were warned for years that Zemar was in danger.
At least 4 times, records show, Brandy Pierce was the subject of CPS complaints. The first coming in 2015, after Pierce admitted to marijuana and alcohol use during her first trimester. It happened, she said, before she decided to keep Zemar. There were complaints in 2019 and 2021, both alleging that Zemar had been left alone. The first time in the lobby of a Southfield apartment building, with Zemar telling police he did not know where he belonged. Police later made contact with a relative, and the complaint was denied. 2 years later, on a 78-degree day in May, Zemar was left alone in his mother's locked car for more than 90 minutes while she went to a doctor's appointment.
Wow.
She told police her son was a heavy sleeper and claimed doctors wouldn't let him into her appointment.
Right. So you're investigating a neglected child who was left in a locked, hot car. The mother says that the doctors, she says he's a heavy sleeper. Number one, that's not an excuse to leave your child in a locked car that's hot, right? But then she gives you something you can investigate because that's her opinion. How do you know whether she's telling the truth about him being a heavy sleeper or not when you don't know the child, you never seen him sleep before? But she does give you something you can investigate, right? She says the doctor wouldn't allow me to have my child in. So my next question would be, well, what's your doctor's name? Because remember that this was discovered outside of the doctor's office. So you don't even need to know where the doctor is. You're not even asking, where's your doctor's phone number? What's his address? What's his name? What's your doctor's name? Then you walk into the doctor's office and you say, hey, I am Officer such and such. Do you guys allow people to bring their children in? It doesn't have to be a HIPAA thing because you're not even asking about this particular patient. Do you guys allow your patients to bring their children into the office when they have an appointment? If the answer is yes, then you know she's lying. But the way that Detroit seems to do business, I'm pretty sure they said, oh, that makes sense. No problem. Perfectly okay for you to leave your little boy in a hot car while you go and get your doctor's appointment finished. Let's keep going.
It's the pattern, right? Here is a mom, again, where she's repeatedly reported by different people in the community.
Frank Vandervoort is a law professor at the University of Michigan and a longtime child welfare advocate who said Pierce's pattern of behavior and the disclosure that she was receiving mental health services on an almost daily basis should have been a red flag to CPS.
Right. That suggests to me a very severe level of mental health need. So I'm troubled by that, and it raises more questions than it answers for us.
The Macomb County prosecutor denied a warrant request for child abuse, saying there was insufficient evidence and CPS working with mom. CPS would close the case after performing a home...
Now, I'll say this, right? Based off of what they just said just now, the police did actually request a warrant to arrest her. It looks like the police were not buying it. They probably did exactly what I said that they should have did, which is good. Kudos to them. If this is the case and they requested a warrant and it was them who requested a warrant, I apologize. I retracted that they were not doing their job properly. But somebody, because it doesn't say that Detroit police, but somebody, because there's other entities that could put in a request for a warrant. Somebody put in a request for a warrant. I'm going to give deference and say that the police did it. And the prosecutor denied it. The prosecutor said, no, this is crazy, but let's keep going. Why? Because she's a mom or something? Well, we got to just take it easy on her. Oh, she's a single mom or something like that. But what if it was a guy? I wonder if they'd have denied that warrant if it was a guy who did the very same things that she did. There's a lot of bias in this world, ladies and gentlemen. And the more you open your eyes, the more you see the biases that we have. And sometimes these biases result in people dying. Innocent people dying, children dying because of these institutionalized societal biases that we place in our society when we need to grow out of it. People are people. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter what your race is. It doesn't matter what your sexuality is. People are capable of good and people are capable of evil. And when somebody breaks the law, we need to hold them accountable, full stop. But it seems like we pick and choose winners in this society. Let's keep going.
Visit finding no safety hazards, enough food, and suitable sleeping arrangements.
Then, last April, came the fourth complaint to CPS. This time, Pierce would come here to this Plymouth Hospital emergency room, reporting she was anxious and depressed.
Pierce told CPS she had a breakdown and felt herself going into a panic attack. She was questioning whether she should give up custody of one of her children. She'd been evicted from a motel. She said her car was repossessed. She was completely out of funds. Once she left the hospital, she and her kids would be sleeping on the street.
On its own, how serious is that?
Critical. This is a family with no place to live. She tells the caseworker, I can't sleep in my car, which suggests to me that she's been sleeping in her car at some points.
But what Zemar told CPS was most alarming of all. He had not been to school in over a year, he said, and doesn't always have food to eat. He said his mother beat him with a belt, that she's choked him.
So you have a child that's, oh my God, we'll go back because I know I'm interrupting it because it just gets worse. But we have a child that's saying, I haven't been to school in a year. My mother beats me. My mother chokes me. My mother threatens to kill me. And that's not cause for removal. I thought, at least in New York, not going to school for a year is cause for removal. You could lose your children if your children have bad attendance. So I guess in Detroit, you don't have to send your kid to school. It's like optional. That's optional in Detroit. Apparently that's optional in Detroit. Get the camera out the way. I thought that would be grounds for removal just in itself, and then all right, so not even forget it, just add it to the list. She beats me. She chokes me. I don't always have food, and I think she's gonna kill me. A 9-year-old is saying that. Nothing to see here. He'll grow out of it. She'll get used to it. Or vice versa. She'll grow out of it. He'll get used to it. Whatever works. On to the next case. Unbelievable. So what? To get this kid removed, she would have to chop off one of his legs and he survives. And then they'll remove him with one leg. That's when they will remove the kid. Well, they didn't remove him and he died. His death is on you. The CPS person who signed off on allowing her to keep this child, that death is on you. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that lightly. And I would tell you in your face if I saw you, that death is on you. And if you got mad, don't get mad. Get mad at yourself. Because all we're doing is calling out the facts that death is on you. There was no innuendo here. There was no misunderstanding. The victim told you, she chokes me, she beats me, she doesn't feed me. I think she's gonna kill me. I'm hungry. And I haven't been to school in a year. And that wasn't enough to remove the child. If you work in a system, some people say, well, that's just his job. Maybe he tried or she tried. And the bosses was like, no. Why would you work for a system like that? That's like me saying, oh, I had no choice but to shoot the guy in the back or beat the unarmed guy for no reason. I'm a cop. That's what happens when you're a cop. No, I would not work for a police department or a system that would make me beat on or hurt or kill innocent people. I'd quit. I'd go get another job. I've never had to do that in my career. I've never seen other people. It happens. That's why people get mad about police and stuff like that. But I've never seen that in my career. So I never had to make that choice. But if I ever was in a situation where I'm being told by a sergeant, beat that innocent man because of the color of his skin or the lack of color in his skin or the gender or the sexuality of the person, I'm going to say, F you. This is just a job. I quit. Because my morals and my dignity and my self-worth and my principles and my personal honor is worth more than this badge, worth more than this uniform, worth more than that check, and is definitely worth more than the evil that you're trying to get me to commit on another human being. There's other things to do. There's other jobs you can get. So if you're that CPS worker and your excuse is going to be, well, I tried my best, but you know what? The system is broken and my bosses made me change the report or not take action or whatever, you're still at fault because you signed your name on that paper and you helped perpetuate this evil, this misconduct, this corruption. the type of system that would listen to a child say these things.
Of all, he had not been to school in over a year, he said, and doesn't always have food to eat. He said his mother beat him with a belt, that she's choked him with her hands, and that she wants to kill him.
That's what you heard that child tell you. And your response was, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here.
Rational, normal person walking out on the street hearing this would be completely alarmed by what they're hearing. They would take action. They would call the police.
But what CPS did, according to internal records, was close the case. The investigation found no preponderance of evidence of physical neglect. Pierce was provided with pamphlets.
Guys, preponderance of evidence is a lower standard than beyond a reasonable doubt. 51%. A 9-year-old telling you what he just said is enough to bring you over that hill. His testimony alone, the bar is so low that his testimony saying these things is happening to him alone is enough for them to have to remove this child. And if you think that the other children were fine, it's just this one child, just remove that one child. Just remove that one child. They didn't do it. They didn't even do it. Even though she went to them and said, I'm thinking about giving up the child. I can't take care of this child. I'm having a mental breakdown. She's even saying she's having problems taking care of the child. And the child is in return saying, yo, she's trying to kill me. And it wasn't enough to satisfy the lowest of standards. An administrative standard, not a criminal standard, an administrative standard, a civil standard. It wasn't enough to save this child's life.
Connecting her with community services, and a note was added to follow up on her mental health appointments. 6 months later, after Zemar reported that his mother choked and wanted to kill him, prosecutors say she did.
It's alleged that she killed him and that the cause of death found by the medical examiner
You failed them
was
too,
smothering
lady.
and neck compression.
You failed them. It was your prosecutor's office that
CPS
said no.
records show that the family was placed at a homeless shelter after that final complaint last April. It is not clear how long they were there. Then in December, Brandy Pierce was found in Georgia. She was arrested
Georgia.
after someone reported finding her other child,
Not Las Vegas, Georgia. Sorry about that.
a 3-year-old, locked in a car alone. Police said temperatures were in the 40s, the child was nude, and there was feces and a deflated air mattress in the vehicle. Citing state and federal law, CPS said they could not comment on this case, but they are heartbroken by Zemar's death and are committed to ensuring the health and safety of all children.
No, you're not. You failed them. No, you are not.
Tonight, Zemar's relatives are trying to pay for his burial. They have started a GoFundMe, and we have included a link where you can donate on our website right now at wxyz.com. Beyond horrific. And we asked CPS, is the employee who handled that last investigation, what is their status? Are they working today? Are they under investigation? Were they disciplined? They said they couldn't comment, but there are many, many questions that need to be asked about.
I mean, it leaves you speechless, and my stomach is.
You know, when I don't live up to the standards of the people, there are a lot of laws that could result in me being criminally charged. I don't understand how you can have people working in a critical position like a child protective services agent, and they are not criminally charged when they engage in gross negligence. Listen, they work a very difficult job, and they're not going to catch every kid, just like I can't solve every case. There are people out there who will tell you, Strategic did not solve my case. He did not solve my rape case. I was a victim of rape, and Strategic was not able to solve it. You can't solve every case. Sometimes the evidence is just not there. Sometimes I will present a case that I'm like, hey, I know this happened. This is the best I could find in terms of evidence, district attorney, and they might say it's not enough for us to prosecute. That's what happens most of the time. 99% of the time, it's not us as detectives telling victims that we can't move forward with a criminal case. It's the district attorneys telling us and the county attorneys telling us to tell the victims that they're not willing to accept the case. So nobody can be 100% batting 1,000 at the mound, right? So I'm not saying that a CPS agent, every time a child unfortunately experiences abuse or dies, that they should go to jail. I'm talking about people who are falsifying these documents and not following the rules and regulations in a very grossly negligent manner. And to me, if a child is saying that they're not being fed, they're not going to school, they're getting choked, they're getting beat with a belt, they think that they're going to die and the person is telling them they're going to kill them, and you're not showing that you followed every single investigative step and CPS step that they give you in the manual before you close that case out, you should be held criminally liable, in my book. In my book. Because if a dude punches me in my face and then I punch him back in his face and then he falls to the ground, because you punch me in my face, I could punch you back in your face lawfully. And then I get on top of him and I start wailing on him. I'm using my radio to beat on him and I'm batoning him and spraying him in his face and all this extra stuff. And he's just sitting there. I go to jail. When he punched me in my face and I punched him back, I had every right to defend myself as an officer, as a law enforcement officer. But I went too far by doing that other stuff. I go to jail, and rightfully so, because I have taken an oath to use just the amount of force that's necessary to get control. And when I hit him, that was it. I shouldn't have went that extra mile. So why is it that this guy or gal can basically ignore this child's plea for help, and then the child ends up dead and basically predicts their own death, and there's no repercussions for the person who they tried to get help from, whose job it was to help them, and who basically just ignored them? Like William J. said about Jen Soto, that CPS worker took King's complaint and just made it dirt under the bridge. Treated this boy's cry for help like dirt under the bridge. I know that sounds stupid for anybody who doesn't know about the Madeline Soto case. The term is water under the bridge, but the prosecutor in that case used the term dirt under the bridge, which is something none of us have ever heard before. But it's the same difference. It was nothing to him. It didn't matter. It's just brushed it away. It's just dirt under the bridge. I'll see you guys on the next one. Strategic is out of here. Peace.